As the sun was starting to set over the city, Pepe Miguel stepped out of the home of the third victim, Teresa Lopez, her story replaying in his mind. He pulled his coat tighter around him as a cool breeze whistled through the empty streets. He was now heading toward the home of Isabella Sanchez, the fourth victim, whose case file Sergio had given him. As he walked, his mind was heavy with the stories of the 3 victims he had already visited that day. His morning had started with a visit to Rosa Diaz's former apartment. Inside Rosa's apartment, her lingering presence was still palpable. Her boyfriend, Diego, a man now marked by the passage of time and loss, gestured for Pepe to sit on the couch that still faintly held Rosa's perfume. Diego's eyes carried a melancholic shadow. He still missed Rosa every day, he admitted. As they spoke of Rosa's love for art, her infectious laugh, her dreams, and the future they had imagined together, Diego's gaze kept drifting toward a small, worn, leather-bound book that lay on the coffee table. Pepe noticed this and asked about the book. Diego shrugged, a mix of sadness and confusion crossing his face. Rosa bought that book. Said she was into magic, he said. I thought she meant card tricks, you know? Magic to show off at parties or something. I never really opened it. Pepe asked if he could see the book. Diego passed it to him, his eyes distant. It was heavier than it looked, its pages yellowed with age and use. As Pepe flipped through it, he found a page Rosa had marked. It detailed a ritual that promised divine bow. TY to its practitioner. This wasn't sleight of hand or illusion. This was purportedly real magic. Pepe's heart skipped a beat. He asked Diego if he could keep the book for his investigation, promising to return it when the case was closed. With the book in his possession, Pepe felt he had come one step closer to knowing Rosa, and perhaps closer to uncovering the truth. His next stop had been the Alvarez family home. Maria Alvarez, the introverted art history student, had a room that mirrored her nature. It was a sanctuary filled with stacks of books on ancient history, but devoid of the usual teenage clutter. Her mother mentioned that Maria had complained of feeling watched in the weeks before her disappearance, a detail that made the hairs on the back of Pepe's neck stand up. Maria's parents, still heartbroken, spoke in quiet, restrained voices about their daughter's passion for knowledge and how she would spend hours lost in the pages of her books. Looking around her room, Pepe realized that Maria's world was largely contained within these 4 walls, and her books were her windows to the outside world. Pepe thanked Maria's parents and stepped out of Maria's room, leaving them to their grief. He carried with him the image of a girl who preferred to lose herself in the mysteries of the past. A girl who felt she was being watched, but whose fears were dismissed until it was too late. As he walked away from the Alvarez household, he was enveloped by a profound sadness, a reflection of the grief that hung heavily within those walls. Pepe's third stop was at the house of Teresa Lopez, the woman who refused to let a terminal diagnosis define her final days. As he approached the house, he caught a glimpse of Mariana's eyes. They held a mix of sorrow and strength, making him pause momentarily, struck by her expressive gaze. Detective Miguel, Teresa's daughter Mariana, began, her voice trembling slightly. My mum, she was a fighter. When she got the cancer diagnosis, it only made her fight harder. She began looking into all sorts of things, even things she didn't believe in before, just to keep going, you know? Pepe nodded, understanding the desperation that often comes when one is facing their own mortality. I understand. Your mother was strong. More than you know, detective. She had begun reading about all sorts of things like natural therapies, alternative medicine, even magic. Pepe's heart skipped a beat at the mention of magic. He asked, did she happen to have any books or anything of that sort? Mariana frowned a bit before nodding. Yes, she had a few. She said they gave her hope, even if it was just a glimmer. I can bring them to you if you want. I would appreciate that, Pepe responded. Mariana moved around the room, pulling out several books from a drawer and placing them on the coffee table. Her movements were meticulous, almost robotic, as though she had repeated this act multiple times. As she was about to sit down, she paused, her hand hovering over a worn, leather-bound book. This one, she hesitated. I almost forgot. I saw her reading this a week before she disappeared. It seemed stranger than her usual reads. She said it was an old book on herbal remedies, but it had symbols and illustrations I'd never seen before. I didn't think much of it at the time. As Pepe reached for the leather-bound book, his fingers brushed against Mariana's. An unexpected jolt of electricity passed between them. They both seemed momentarily distracted. Locking eyes before quickly looking away, the professional barriers back in place. He opened up the leather-bound book, revealing intricate symbols and strange illustrations. A chill ran down his spine. This was the second time in one day that such a book had found its way into his hands. Mariana, Pepe began, choosing his words carefully. This might be more significant than you realize. Have you seen anyone else with this book or anything similar? She shook her head. No, just my mother. Why? What is it? It's hard to say right now, Pepe replied, not wanting to alarm her prematurely. But this is the second time today I've come across such a book. It might hold a key to understanding more about your mother's last days. Pepe noticed a flicker of hope in Mariana's eyes. A hope he silently promised himself he would not let die. Mariana, he said, his voice steady, I will do everything I can to solve this. Your mother deserves justice. She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. I just want to know what happened. It's the not knowing that kills me every day. Pepe gave her a reassuring nod. I know, Mariana, and I promise you, I won't rest until we have the answers. With that, he picked up the worn book from the table, its ominous symbols glinting faintly under the dim light. I will need to take this with me. It might help us understand what happened. Mariana looked at the book, a melancholic smile on her lips. That book Mum said it gave her hope. I don't understand it, but if it can help you find her killer, it's yours. Pepe nodded, sliding the book gently into his bag. He paused, sensing an unspoken bond forming with Mariana amid their shared mission for justice. Mariana, if there's anything else, any other details, don't hesitate. And Mabe, once this is over, we could talk. Not just about the case, but a bit of everything. She hesitated, then gave a slight nod. I'd like that, thank you, Mariana. You'll be in touch soon. As Pepe walked away from the house, he found himself reflecting not just on the case, but also on the unexpected connection H felt with Mariana. Was it simply two souls seeking closure and justice, or was there something more beneath the surface? He found himself remembering the time his eyes first fell on his wife. He quickly brushed the thoughts of Mariana from his mind. The sun was setting, casting long, dark shadows across the city. But within him, a fire was lit. The book, the conversations of the day, they all pointed to something bigger, something darker. He could feel it in his bones. He was onto something, a lead that could crack the case wide open. But for now, he had one last visit to make. With a deep breath, he continued down the street, the remnants of his conversations from the day lingering in his mind as he headed toward his fourth and final stop.